My wife cheated on me with her boss, stole our $250, $0 savings, and now she's claiming ownership of our house in court. I never saw the betrayal coming. I never saw it coming. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about Lisa. She was the kind of woman who always acted like she had it all together, smart, confident, a little bitchy at times, and I loved her for it. We'd been married for 8 years, and in that time, I thought we had built a life that was solid, stable, and full of plans for the future. But I guess I was blind, or maybe just too comfortable, because everything unraveled faster than I could have imagined. It all started with small things, little signs that seemed innocent at first. Lisa's phone would buzz at odd hours, and she'd quickly hide it or change the subject when I asked who was texting her. She started working late more often, claiming it was just her boss pushing for deadlines, but I noticed she was more secretive. She'd brush off my questions, get defensive, and tell me I was overthinking. She'd say, "You're paranoid, Dave. I'm not cheating on you." That's what she kept saying over and over until I started to doubt myself. Then came the night I found her phone open on the kitchen table. I was looking for my keys and I saw a string of messages between her and some guy named Mark. At first, I thought it was just work stuff, but then I started reading. They had plans. Not just professional stuff, but flirtatious comments, plans to meet up after hours, and even some pretty explicit talk about sex. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was right there in black and white that Lisa had been lying to me for months. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I decided to dig deeper. I started paying attention to her habits, her phone, her emails. It didn't take long before I found more. Hidden receipts from hotels, messages to Mark that she tried to delete but I managed to recover. She'd been sneaking around, lying to my face. And the worst part, I found out she'd been having sex with him, not just talking but actually doing it. I found a hotel bill with her name on it, dated just last week. That was the moment I knew Lisa had been cheating on me for months, maybe longer. What made it worse was that she'd been so convincing, so bitchy and dismissive when I confronted her. She spun some bullshit about how I was paranoid, that it was all a mistake, that Mark was just a business associate she was doing some favor for. She told me I was overreacting, that I was jealous and insecure, but I knew better. I had proof now, and no amount of her lies could change that. Still, I was stunned. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly furious. I'd given her everything, my time, my trust, my money, and she'd thrown it all away for some guy she barely knew. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. And then came the money. It's not just the affair that burns me, it's what she did to our savings. We had about $250, $0 tucked away, a mix of my savings, some investments, and a little bit of inheritance from my parents. We had plans, big plans, and she knew that. I always thought we were solid financially, that we'd be set for life. But I was wrong. When I checked our bank accounts after I found out about Mark, I noticed some strange transactions. Large withdrawals, some unexplained transfers. I dug deeper and realized she'd been draining our account, taking money out little by little, probably to give to Mark or to fund her secret life. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this and then steal from us? That's when I started to see the full picture. She wasn't just cheating on me emotionally and physically. She was actively destroying what we'd built, taking our money, lying through her teeth. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was nothing like I thought she was. She was just a manipulative, selfish bitch who used me and then threw me away like garbage. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not only because she was cheating and stealing, but because I had to protect what was ours. I had to find a way to fight back, to reclaim my life, and to put an end to her lies. I started making plans. I knew I couldn't confront her directly again without solid proof and a clear strategy. My mind raced with options, legal action, exposing her, maybe even some kind of revenge. I was so angry I could barely think straight. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, betrayed, humiliated, used. I wanted her to understand that she couldn't just take whatever she wanted and walk away. And I knew, deep down, I had to be the one to take control now. My life had been turned upside down and I was just getting started. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her smirk, the way she lied so effortlessly, the way she looked at Mark like he was her entire world. I kept replaying that moment. I found her messages on her phone, the hotel bill, the bank transactions. It was like a punch to the gut every time. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. I always thought we had a good thing, that she was loyal, that she loved me. Turns out I was just another fool in her game. I decided I had to get more proof. I hired a private investigator. I know it sounds extreme, but I needed to be sure. I couldn't base my next move on just suspicion. I wanted concrete evidence, photos, videos, anything that would make her lie fall flat. The pie was discreet, professional. Within days, he came back with everything I needed. There were pictures of her and Mark at that hotel, kissing, holding hands. They'd been sleeping together, no doubt about it. The videos showed her sneaking out of Mark's apartment late at night, her hair disheveled, makeup smudged. It was brutal. No more denying it, no more excuses. Once I had the proof, I knew I had to confront her again. I waited until she came home from work, trying to keep my composure. When she stepped inside, I was already waiting in the living room with all the evidence spread out on the table. She saw the pictures, the videos, the bank statements, and her face instantly turned pale. Her eyes darted around, trying to find a way out. I could see the panic in her eyes, the flicker of guilt that she was trying so hard to hide. I didn't even bother to yell at her at first. I just looked at her, cold and steady. "Lisa," I said, voice calm but hard. "I know everything, the messages, the hotel, the money. How long has this been going on?" She tried to deny it at first. She started with her usual line, "You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like. It's just sex, Dave. It's not a big deal." But I cut her off. "Don't lie to me. I have the proof. You've been cheating on me with Mark for months, and you've been stealing from us. Our savings, our future, gone because of you." Her face twisted into a sneer. "Oh, please. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I was just having some fun. Mark is just a business contact, and I needed to blow off steam. You're being paranoid as usual." She looked so dismissive, so condescending, like I was the crazy one. That's when I saw the true nature of the bitch I married. She was so good at lying, so good at pretending she was innocent. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her she needed to leave. I couldn't be around her anymore, not after what I'd uncovered. She threw a fit, screamed at me, called me a jealous, insecure bastard. She said I was ruining everything, that she deserved her happiness too. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate me again. I told her I was going to take everything back, our money, our house, everything she tried to claim in court. I was done playing nice. That night I stayed up and started drafting my legal options. I contacted a lawyer, explained everything, her affair, the theft, the lies. I wanted her out of my life, out of our house, and I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I also contacted the bank and froze our joint accounts. I needed to protect what was left of our savings. I knew she was planning to make a move, maybe claim she was the rightful owner of the house or try to hide the money. I had to act fast. In the meantime, I packed her stuff and told her she had 48 hours to get out. She screamed at me, called me every name in the book, accused me of ruining her life, but I didn't care. I was done with her lies. The woman I once loved was gone, replaced by this manipulative, selfish bitch who thought she could get away with everything. I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief that I finally knew the truth, and rage that I had let her get so far. But I also knew I had to stay strong. This wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. The days that followed were a nightmare, but also a turning point. I stayed up late every night, poring over legal documents, talking to my lawyer, and making sure every step was precise. I knew Lisa's plan was to fight me over the house, claiming she was entitled to it because she said she contributed more during the marriage. Bullshit, of course. She's always been good at twisting things around, making herself the victim. But I had the proof that she lied about her income, about her contributions, about everything. I had the bank statements, the hotel receipts, the messages. I was ready. Meanwhile, Lisa was trying to spin her story. She started calling friends, family, anyone who would listen, claiming I was a jealous, controlling husband who was trying to ruin her reputation. She told everyone I was emotionally abusive, that I was paranoid and possessive. I knew better. I knew her game. She was trying to turn people against me to make herself look like the innocent victim. But I didn't care. I had the evidence, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate me or anyone else anymore. One afternoon, I decided to go to the house alone. I needed to see it to take control of what was mine. When I arrived, I saw her car parked outside. My stomach clenched. I wasn't surprised. She was probably trying to pack her things, or maybe just wanted to see if she could manipulate me into changing my mind. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and watched. What I saw confirmed everything. She was inside, going through drawers, packing boxes, acting like she owned the place. That's when I called my lawyer and told him to prepare the paperwork for the eviction and the legal fight over the house. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, feeling exhausted but relieved. I had finally taken control of the situation. The money was frozen, the house was in dispute, and Lisa's lies were crumbling. I knew she'd try to spin things to her advantage, but I was ready. I had the proof, and I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine. I also told my close friends what happened. They were shocked but supportive. It felt good to finally tell someone the truth, to stop hiding and pretending everything was okay. But beneath all that, I was hurting. Deep down, I still loved her. At least I thought I did. I kept replaying our memories, wondering where it all went wrong. How did I miss the signs? Was I just too blind, too trusting? Every time I thought about her cheating, stealing, lying, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I had built this life with her, and now it was crumbling. I kept asking myself if I should try to save the marriage or just cut my losses and move on. The legal battle was just beginning, but inside I was already preparing myself for the worst. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. Nothing ever is after betrayal like this. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. She'd already taken enough. I had to fight, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity, my sanity, my future. The court date finally rolled around, and I was a mess of nerves and anger. I had spent days gathering every piece of evidence I could find: bank statements, text messages, hotel receipts, recordings of her calls with Mark, everything that proved her lies and her theft. I knew Lisa would try to spin her story, probably claiming I was emotionally abusive or that I was trying to control her. But I was prepared for that. I had the truth on my side, and I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. When we sat in front of the judge, Lisa looked smug at first, like she thought she had everything under control. She was dressed nicely, acting like the victim, her bitchy smirk never leaving her face. I felt a strange urge to just tear her apart right then and there, but I kept my composure. I presented my case with calm, clear facts. I laid out all the evidence, explained how she'd been cheating, stealing our money, and trying to claim ownership of the house. I could see her trying to interrupt, trying to talk her way out of it, but my lawyer was relentless. We had everything nailed down. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that she contributed equally, that she had some claim to the house because she'd been living there longer or some other bullshit. But I shot that down fast. I had proof she was lying about her income, that she'd been siphoning money from our account, and that her affair was ongoing until just recently. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, and I felt a flicker of hope. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. I wanted her to pay for the betrayal and theft she had committed. After hours of testimony and presentation of evidence, the judge finally made a ruling. It was in my favor. The court ordered her to vacate the house within 30 days, and she was ordered to return the stolen money, plus interest. She looked furious, hurling accusations and insults as she stormed out of the courtroom. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. It was over, at least for now. I had won the legal battle, but the emotional scars still lingered. In the days that followed, I moved into a small apartment. I didn't want to stay in that house anymore. It was tainted by her betrayal, and I needed a fresh start. I also started the process of dividing our assets, selling some of her belongings, getting the bank to release the frozen funds, and beginning to rebuild my life. I knew I'd need time to heal, but I felt a sense of closure. For the first time in months, I could breathe easier. Lisa's reaction to losing everything was predictable. She tried to manipulate her way back into my good graces, calling incessantly, sending messages, even showing up at my new place trying to guilt-trip me. But I was done. I told her to stay away. I didn't want her lies or her manipulations in my life anymore. I learned a hard lesson about trust, about how far some people will go when they think they can get away with it. I realized that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to take control and fight back, even if it means losing what you loved. Looking back, I see how naive I was to think everything was perfect. But I also see that I was strong enough to face the truth, to stand up for myself, and to come out on the other side still standing. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. I don't regret fighting for my future. I just wish I'd seen the signs sooner. If there's one thing I can tell anyone going through something similar, trust your gut, document everything, and don't be afraid to stand your ground. Because in the end, you're the only one who can truly protect what's yours. The aftermath of everything was a whirlwind. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even happiness that I finally had some peace after all the chaos. But honestly, I mostly just felt exhausted, emotionally drained, like I'd been run over by a truck. The house was gone, the money was returned or frozen, and Lisa was out of my life for good, or so I hoped. Still, the scars remained. Every time I saw an old photo or heard her name, a part of me clenched up with anger and disappointment. I threw myself into rebuilding. I started going to therapy, not just to cope with the betrayal, but to understand how I'd missed so many signs. It helped me process the pain, the anger, and the betrayal. I also invested time in my work, poured my energy into my career, and slowly I began to feel like I was regaining control over my life. It wasn't easy, and some nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything, wondering if I should have fought harder or if I could have saved the marriage. But deep down, I knew I'd done everything I could. Sometimes that's all you can do. One of the biggest lessons I learned was about money and trust. Lisa's theft and her affair made me realize how fragile that trust can be. I'd always been careful with our finances, saving, investing, planning for the future. But I never imagined she'd go behind my back and steal $250,000. That was a wake-up call. Now I'm more cautious, more aware. I set up multiple layers of security on our accounts, and I plan to keep a closer eye on my finances from now on. Trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken, and I'm not naive enough to think I'll ever be the same. As for Lisa, I don't know where she is now. I heard she moved out of state, maybe trying to start over, maybe trying to escape the fallout. Honestly, I don't care. What matters is that I've learned to protect myself and my future. I've realized that sometimes people reveal their true colors when you least expect it, and the best thing you can do is cut out the poison and move forward. Looking back, I see how much I've grown from this experience. I used to think that marriage was about trust and loyalty, but I've learned that sometimes the worst betrayal comes from the people closest to you. It's a lesson in vigilance, resilience, and self-preservation. I don't regret fighting for what's mine, my dignity, my money, my peace. Because if I hadn't, I might still be blind, still trusting the wrong person, still living under her shadow. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, don't ignore the signs. Pay attention to the little things, changes in behavior, secretive phone habits, unexplained expenses. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to dig deeper. Protect your assets, document everything, and don't let anyone take what you've worked so hard for. Most importantly, don't stay in a situation where you're being betrayed or manipulated. It's hard, it's painful, but you're stronger than you think. And in the end, the only person who truly has your back is yourself. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to think a marriage was about love, trust, sharing a life together. Turns out, sometimes it's about protecting yourself from someone you thought you knew. Lisa's betrayal was the deepest cut I've ever experienced, but it also forced me to grow stronger, more cautious, and more aware of what I deserve. I've learned that no matter how much you love someone, you can't ignore the red flags or dismiss your gut feelings. If something feels off, it probably is. Document everything, even the little things. because when it hits the fan, those records are what will save you. Trust is fragile. Once broken, rebuilding it is nearly impossible, so protect what's yours with everything you've got. Getting through this has taught me the importance of standing up for myself, even if it means facing uncomfortable truths or losing the person I once loved. I realized that my happiness and peace of mind are worth more than any relationship built on lies. I might have lost Lisa, but I gained clarity, independence, and a sense of control I never truly had before. I hope anyone reading this who's dealing with betrayal or financial deception takes this as a warning. Be vigilant. Protect your assets. Trust wisely, and don't ever let anyone take advantage of your kindness or your trust. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you respect yourself enough to walk away from the lies and the betrayal, and to rebuild your life on your own terms. That's what I did, and I can finally say, I'm finally free.